Hey guys, welcome to the gun shop, and today we're going to be talking about Perazzi. We start at the very beginning with a guy called Daniele Perazzi. He started in the gun trade when he was 14. He worked for a gun maker, he apprenticed to a gun maker, and then he worked as a gun maker. He made quite a lot of money selling a patent for his own very clever single trigger design, and he used that money at the age of 25 to form Army Perazzi guns. The year the Perazzi Army was founded was 1957, and they did quite well for 3 years before Perazzi met a guy called Ivo Fabbri. Perazzi and Fabbri worked together with the ethos of making a high-end gun fashioned after the English really high-end guns, but at a much more attainable price point to their local Italian market. As such, they went to Boss and they went to Woodward, and they took some of their design concepts, features and ideas and ploughed it into what we know today as the Perazzi style action. This was no quick feat, obviously, and actually took some years. So we start very early on. They actually worked with a guy called Ennio Mattarelli. So Perazzi, Fabbri and Mattarelli worked together to design and create a clay gun, and they did quite a good job of that. Mattarelli in fact took this gun, their concept gun, all the way to Tokyo for the 1964 Olympics, coming back with the first gold medal that Perazzi would win. In fact, they've won quite a few. In fact, they've won well over 40 medals Olympic, let alone many others. In fact, a lot of their sponsored shooters, all the shooters who shoot Perazzis, are among the best in the world. And that's fact. In 1965, Fabbri and Perazzi parted ways, Fabbri going off to make some of the finest gun Italy have to offer, and Perazzi maintaining the course for Perazzi Army. His new project was to produce an even better clay gun to take to the 1968 Olympics. This gun is something that we all know, and it's called the MX-8. Although it's not entirely reminiscent of what we know and love today, it's pretty much identical, apart from maybe some of the specs. In fact, the MX-8 really was a turning point in Perazzi's life and was a turning point in guns overall. It started to feature a pistol grip. I mean, can you imagine a time when a pistol grip wasn't standard on a Perazzi or on a clay gun, to be fair? As well as a pistol grip, it had a higher ventilated rib. This was for heat dispersion amongst other things, so you didn't get that haze over the top of the barrel when shooting a lot. It also had a higher stock to compensate, and actually started to look a lot more like a trap gun as we know them today. In fact, this was, like I said, the MX-8 was a very important turning point in trap guns. The final exciting thing about the MX-8 is that it had a multi-choke bottom barrel, a fashion that really only started about when this gun came out, and they were one of the first to sort of embrace that. Multi-chokes. That's pretty cool. It sounds stupid, but we take them for granted today. Back then, that was groundbreaking, really groundbreaking. Of course, something that MX-8 had that it still has today that means it's an MX-8 is it has a detachable trigger group powered by V-springs, although you can now order it with coil springs if you prefer, helical springs, sorry, if you prefer. So, essentially, as I've said a couple of times now, the MX-8 was a groundbreaking gun, a gun that really changed the market and influenced the way we look at guns today. It is obviously still available and still fantastic in terms of engineering design. Unfortunately, the 1968 Olympics was won by a Brit using a Browning. Shame. Some years later, they released something called the MX-12, which was kind of a diet Perazzi, if you like. All of the design, all the engineering around the action and the barrels came together the same, except you did not have a detachable trigger group and was available as standard with helical springs as opposed to V-springs. A simpler group to make a simpler trigger unit, to make a simpler action to make, and it was a much more affordable price point. In fact, the MX-12 action has a lot of the entry-level Perazzis designed around it. Perazzi have over 100 skilled gunsmiths working for them at the moment, which means, yes, a lot of the guns are handmade. A large proportion of the guns are handmade, and anything that is machine-made is pretty much 100% hand-finished, which allows you to have a gun that has a lot more soul than perhaps something that is 100% machine-made. What this also, however, does mean is you have a few of the tolerance issues that you do have with a handmade gun. So you might have to be a little forgiving, although most things are quality controlled beyond any contemplation. So what models are available today? Well, you have the MX-8 and the MX-12, obviously. They do standard and SC3 models. SC3 essentially means pretty. Better wood and better engraving. Obviously, all engraving is done by hand, so there is various levels of engraving you can pay for in terms of quality, coverage, etc. The high-tech is kind of like an MX-8, except it's 40 grams heavier and 3mm wider in the action. This allows it to feel a little more planted and is designed really just to feel a little harder. The high-tech, however, is available with both detachable and fixed trigger units, depending on which one you go for and how much you want to spend. Before we move on, there's a lot of opinion about Perazzi, and a lot of people have shot them and they'll say yes they're good and yes they're bad, but I think with a Perazzi, more so than most other gun makers, it's almost impossible to say an MX-8 is a bad gun or an MX-8 is a good gun. I don't like the way an MX-8 shoots, because every single one is so damn individual. So for example, when you're speccing one, there is almost, I think there's 27 different fore-end styles and sizes you can go for. 27. And even then, when you're going for a hand fitting, you could probably ask it to be completely custom. That's just the fore end, let alone the stock, let alone the wood that they put in, let alone when you order the barrels, there is pretty much infinite barrel lengths you want to go for, and inside of that, infinite barrel weights you can go for. So the combinations are, I'll say again, fairly infinite. As such, you can pick up one Perazzi and it feels like a dog, and you'll pick up another Perazzi and it will feel like heaven. However, another man might think that is the other way around. They are such a personal gun, which leads me into the Perazzi experience. Something the Perazzi do for you that no other gun makers do without being treated like it's a mild inconvenience is something called the Perazzi experience. Go to the factory, get on a plane, go to the factory, unless you're in Italy, drive to the factory, pick a gun, they've got a shooting ground there, you can test the gun on the shooting ground, they'll hand fit it to you, hand pick your wood, you'll hand pick everything, you can show them a picture of your wife, they'll engrave it on the side of the action, pretty much whatever you like. Depending on who you talk to, people will say that Perazzi go in and out of good stages. People say the same about most gun makers, depending on when they bought theirs, more than likely. It's worth saying that there are certain periods in time of Perazzi when the engraving is sort of considered a little better, the actioning is considered a little better, and so on and so forth. But on the whole, if you're happy with it, as we've said, and you like the handling of it, most Perazzis are pretty solid. All spare parts are still available, so, you know, that's the beauty of a company that doesn't make many action styles. Unfortunately, Daniele Perazzi died in 2012, and the company is now run by his children, who are taking it from strength to strength. Although they offer the same models they have always offered, they have expanded their range since 2012 to include more entry-level, more high-end, much more technology than they ever did. It was sort of a basic thing to say many years ago that a Perazzi was a solid and simple gun. However, that's not really true anymore because there is so many technical models out there, if you like. Obviously, they offer everything from a flat rib game gun all the way through to a proper high rib adjustable trap gun, and they're all perfectly good, but obviously horses for courses. Something not many people know is they offer something called the DL12. The DL12 is a side-by-side made by Perazzi. It's pretty smart. One of my favourite models that Perazzi do is completely off the rails, completely unimportant. Apart from actually there's two. The first is they do these sets of 4. The set of 4 is a certain model in 12, 20, 28 and 410, all of which will have identical engraving patterns scaled up or scaled down accordingly. The wood will not quite be book matched, although you can pay for that if you've got the money and they have the wood, but they will all be of a certain style and flavour. Not that I'd ever own a set of 4 particularly, but I like it's a feat of gun making to have 4 action frames all perfectly scaled down and 4 engraving mod patterns all perfectly scaled down. The other is the Perazzi Express SCO. SCO is a grade that Perazzi do, but the Express is an over and under rifle. Made on a Perazzi action. Got all the finesse and lines of Perazzi, except it's a double rifle. Would I ever own one? Probably not, because I'm never going to be able to afford to shoot something with one in the style that they're designed for, but beautiful, beautiful things. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Let me know your Perazzi experiences below. Before I finish, I should say that Perazzi are not considered hard guns, and for anybody who has owned one will know that you generally do need to look after them a little bit. They're famed in their traditional models of not having chromed barrels, so they will rust and rot if you don't clean them. However, that is how they get such perfect handling in their barrels, by just making them like barrels. Guys, thank you very much for watching once again. Take care, goodbye, and we'll see you next time.